Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Project Pro AI Monetization Podcast. I'm Binny Matthews, the co-founder of Project Pro. In this podcast, we focus on speaking with industry AI leaders to learn more about real business outcomes out of AI and more recently, Gen AI. Today, we are honored to have with us Anurag Karuparti and Paul Singh from Microsoft. Paul is a principal cloud solution architect at Microsoft. He spent over a decade there. And earlier, Paul was an IT manager at the University of California at Davis. Anurag is a senior cloud solution architect for data and AI at Microsoft. And before that, he spent close to a decade across multiple roles at ENY and PwC, focused on AI, analytics, cloud, and data engineering. Both Paul and Anurag have a front row seat since they advise and closely work with Fortune 500 companies on getting value from AI. And both of them are also authors of a book titled Generative AI for Cloud Solutions, architect modern LLMs in secure, scalable, and ethical cloud environments. Paul and Anurag, thank you for doing this. It's a pleasure to have you on this podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure being here.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we were going to specifically talk about IDP. So I was curious. I mean, IDP is obviously intelligent document processing. We've all heard of document processing, but I'm curious, what makes IDP intelligent? What's the difference between just a regular document processing we all know and intelligent document processing?
Yeah. So yeah, IDP, as the name suggests, right, it's an intelligent, smarter way of processing data.
Mhm.
Now, the data is usually documents, and we see a lot of unstructured documents in organizations today. The technology driving it is AI, natural language processing, NLP, OCR, right? So, and in the recent past, it has gotten so advanced and cost effective. Like organizations are able to generate a lot of rich insights from this unstructured documents. So we are primarily seeing two types of use cases in this domain. One is where you use you extract information from unstructured documents like PDF, scanned images. It could be, for example, it could be like an invoice, right? And you're trying to extract a PO number and do a downstream lookup on an SAP database. So this is one type of use cases where it's very simple, quick time to value, so much benefit, right, for the engineers who are trying to analyze this data.
Mhm.
The second type of use case, what we're seeing is it takes one step ahead, more generative AI based retrieval-augmented generation, where these unstructured documents are embedded in high-dimensional embedding models, right, and then stored in vector database. And then the customers are building Q&A type of experiences on it to search experiences on organizational data. And this data is unstructured, right? It could be images, semi-structured, and also PDF documents that could be unstructured. So we are seeing so much value being unlocked, analytics being done on top of it. And I think given when organizations are now thinking about the ROI aspect of it, building cost-effective solutions, I think this is a very low-hanging fruit. And that's why we decided to choose this topic, and a lot of value that can be generated. And I'm sure Paul will have more insights as well. But yeah, those were some of my thoughts there.
Yeah, no, that's great. To every point that Anu mentioned, also what we're seeing is the generative aspect. What makes it IDP different than your standard document intelligence processing is you're able to, like Anu said, do large scale analytics, but also generate new forms as well if needed in a faster process. Nobody likes more forms, but however, in a case of efficiencies, generative AI can then pinpoint where maybe a form could be now further optimized or whatever the use case would be. And we'll go into a couple of use cases in a minute, but optimize the form for a specific business as well. Suppose a business doesn't have the requirements or the required forms, Gen AI could help in that aspect as well.
Yeah. And also adding one more thing, right? Like over the last 10 years, we've seen so much evolution in this space, like convolutional neural networks, which are really good at analyzing images, recurrent neural networks. Then we had the transformers, right? And now we're having like strong multimodal capabilities in small language models. So the natural language processing has gotten so intelligent and it's becoming so cost effective. So yeah, and like you can like it's again like quick time to value, good ROI opportunity here, and like high value use case. And I remember when I used to work at PwC like 8 years back when I was a data scientist working on a project, and I used like Python packages called Tesseract to like extract information from invoices, not invoices, claims document of for insurance clients. And it was such a tedious process. It took me like a week to just extract information, like build those boxes, right? Now, fast forward, like these are like quick like API calls, and you're getting such good information out of it. So intelligent, like so that's what like having seen this over the journey, like 10 years, like I think it's gotten to a point where there's a lot of business benefit there.
Makes sense. Makes sense. One thing I was curious about, Anu and Paul, is that since both of you have spent a decade or more looking at automation, digital transformation, right? The previous kind of wave of automation had things like OCR and RPA, like Automation Anywhere, and companies like Blue Prism and all of that stuff, right? They used to, from my limited knowledge, they used to focus on understanding documents and insurance claims forms and all of that. What is fundamentally different about the Gen AI way of doing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, like the traditional OCR systems, right? Like they have a lot of shortcomings there. Like for example, they can't detect handwritten text. Okay. It's also not possible to detect like multilingual, like if it's in like a different language, if it's a regional language, like for example, like the Malayalam, right? Like if something like that. The traditional OCR systems don't really do well, and they are not powered by the large language models.
Right.
Okay. Now, fast forward, like maybe the modern ones have been modernized with large language models, but like this is where we are seeing a lot of value. Like they've gotten so good at even the classification aspect, right? The classification. So basically, what is this OCR? It's very good at classifying text, like a letter or something, right? And the classification models behind it are trained on like large amounts of data. And now they've gotten to a point where they're very intelligent. They can think one step ahead and are able to like understand even like a handwritten text. Okay. Now, this is what we are seeing in the Azure Document Intelligence that we use with our customers. Like it is powered by like these strong classification models. And so that is the main difference that we see. And these are like API calls that you can like scale as well as you need. And when you build those end-to-end workloads, you can also scale effectively, securely, and safely as well. And Gen AI workloads is basically, you can also like generate insight. For example, if you want to build an executive summary out of like a large, like 10, 12 contract documents, and you want to build generate a summary, it can do that very intelligently. So those are some of the things, how it differs.
To add to that, your standard OCR could do the basic forms, like if you have a table and some information in there, it works great. However, in situations we've seen, especially scaling with Fortune 500 customers, most of these forms are complex. They're nested tables, meaning there's a table, and then within that table, there's another table as well. On top of that, then as Anurag mentioned, there's handwritten. When you even handwritten sideways as well, so you have your text in a table and then another table and then some handwritten on the side. That's where OCR just can't keep up with generative AI LLM enabled document intelligence. So, but generally, so that's another use case that we see often where Gen AI can help So
Makes sense. And given your deep experience helping Fortune 500 leaders get value from AI, right? Why is document processing the probably like the use case and everybody thinks about Gen AI? What is so fundamental about document processing inside a business that is the low-hanging fruit?
yeah, great question. Every organization has some sort of form or another, whether it be a HR form or a tax form, an audit form. There's always uh, you mentioned RPA earlier. Yeah, RPA is a large emerging trend now. It always had been, but not more so now with generative AI integrated. However, not every organization can build out robotics platforms in their organization. However, every organization that we've seen, big or small, does have some sort of forms and does need some sort
Yeah.
of processing and analytics, some advanced analytics as well, insights, as Anu mentioned earlier, insights into their forms as well.
There are three things I feel like very critical here. Right? So as per Gartner, 80% of the organizational data is unstructured, and organizations are still trying to identify like how to get value out of it. And if they are able to get value with these models, with like modern tools, it can really aid in their decision making, right, and help them be more competitive. That is one. And then they're looking for more cost efficient solutions and automate the manual processes, right? Like a lot of these documents, like for example, in insurance, if you're doing claims processing, sometimes there's a lot of manual entries. Okay. Now you want to automate those, and this IDP helps with like automating those with API calls and like building that whole end-to-end thing. And also the rising need for like better security and compliance, I think are key as well. Like with GDPR, HIPAA, like CCP, all these regulations, right? There are rules around how you're supposed to handle sensitive data of customers, right? So these again, like so these like IDP APIs have become so advanced, and they're able to identify sensitive data very accurately with high accuracy, and then organizations are able to understand like how they can handle that kind of data and adhere to the privacy compliance practices, right? So yeah, so that to avoid any kind of legal and compliance risks.
Makes sense. And are there specific industries that you think are most poised to benefit the most from IDP?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think so. Like I mentioned, every organization can take advantage of IDP now, and the power of AI. Where we see a lot of traction at the moment is professional services as well, similar to the companies that do large scale audits and finance. Also, there's a large number of audit forms that these organizations have to go through, audit companies. And for example, Anu worked with PwC, but that's one of the organizations that they do a lot of audits for Fortune 500 companies, and the volume of forms that they intake just to do some analysis is quite volume and large. So I see. So that Anu mentioned also insurance, any insurance claims, those are all document bound. Those are other industry as well, which can benefit. And I also think healthcare also, as well. I mean, very typical with healthcare. There's an entire process of not only an individual checking, going to a doctor, for example, that intake side, but then the insurance claims as well, possibly where an individual may have a health insurance or coverage, and there's an entire form process for that processing as well. So, Anu, did you want to add additional items?
Yeah, I mean, you touched like really good points there. So yeah, finance, healthcare, insurance, like I think these are like, they have a lot of unstructured data and like documents like this claims documents, right? Invoice documents. So invoice processing and doing analytics on it is one more thing. The account payable teams, like they derive a lot of value from that, like trying to understand the budget, spend analytics and things like that. So I would say invoice processing is like a big one that I'm seeing among my customers. And I work with a lot of real estate customers as well. And in real estate, RFPs are issued a lot. Like, so for example, if an investor wants to build a building, They will issue an RFP to the construction firm, the real estate firm, and the real estate firm has to respond in a certain time and like intelligently how they are looking, how they want to go about the project with given the schedule of the project. So there we are seeing a lot like RFP response automation using generative AI, and like you extract information from the RFPs, like the project schedule, and like do any kind of legal and compliance risk, right? Any like analyze for legal compliance risk, and then also meet their staffing expectation. This is another interesting one that I saw was they're automating the resume generation process as well for to meet these staffing expectations and tailor this based on the project. So, and that adds a lot of value as well. And I work with media entertainment firms, and media entertainment firms, what I'm seeing is there are a lot of contracts being signed with artists, vendors, right? So doing like some kind of like legal and compliance risks analysis on these contracts, also building an executive summary, and then doing like something like named entity recognition. What that means is like trying to extract like parties and like key entities from that document, and then building an executive summary out of it. So we are seeing a lot of value there as well, like contract analysis, right? In media entertainment. So yeah, these are some of the use cases I've been seeing on the field, working directly with our customers.
Makes sense. One follow-up question I had on that is that when you are kind of helping deploy these IDP solutions at customers, right? Is this a kind of a point solution their customers come to do their document processing needs, or is this integrated into their current workflows inside their current tools that they're using currently? How is this usually used?
Yeah, that's typically correct. What we see is their current processes integration. So there's their entire application workflow that they may have, like, for example, Anu mentioned real estate, that intake form. Typically that might have been you mail in your forms, and then there's somebody that goes, now it's all electronic, so that intake form is so there's a few nuances and changes that are done, but it's the entire process is integrated into their current existing process.
Got it. Okay.
So that's why it's a low-hanging fruit, is because they don't need to modify their processes to adhere to Gen AI or document intelligence processes altogether. It integrates with existing.
And also I see my customers getting very good at building like UXs now, like with also like code automation, right? You can build really good UX where the employees can go and like make use of these services. And also like there are on Azure, like you have playgrounds where like document intelligence playground, where you can like quickly see if it's able to extract information, and then you also get like a code, like complete code that you can then integrate into your existing code, right? And call those APIs. So I mean, even getting easier, and like UX building UX is also like getting it's fast because you can generate the code easily, like automatically.
Understood. And before we double click into some of the use cases and the technical aspects of that, I had one question which was kind of triggered by something that Anurag, you were saying in the beginning, which is the size of the market and the CAGR by which it's growing, and also something I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, Paul, where I think you had mentioned that 2013, 14, you were part of the early team of solution architects for Azure. And I saw a sentence there where you said, "Let's see where this Azure thing goes." This was 2013 or something, right? And it's kind of history since then, right? What has happened with cloud and Azure? So when you compare the early days of cloud to what's happening right now with AI, right? Is it the same order of magnitude you're seeing, or what we are doing right now is a whole different orbit of magnitude of the adoption and the scale and all of that?
Yeah, great question, Binny. So early on with the cloud generally, it was a platform where one could host their services, for example, VMs or run some application. So it was very basic. AI didn't really start gaining foothold into the cloud until mostly 2014, 2015, as the cloud started growing. People knew they could now scale. That normally they can some data scientists ran models on laptops or some local VMs, but however, the cloud gave the opportunity to run these large, I mean, there was not even LLMs back then, but large machine learning models at scale in the cloud. So we saw phenomenal growth there. Even, I mean, now we have new challenges because of the growth of the cloud. One example I could use right now is the models that are being utilized, they move at such a fast pace, the LM models, that they retire after some time because the data may get old, and so now the concept of AI ops, or what used to be ML ops, is very critical. Is to say, okay, what is my life cycle of a model? I have a model that's going to be retiring now. How do I inject a new model? How do I do the iteration testing of that model, LLM model, against my application and ensure it works? So that's, we've seen the evolution of just, we're just, cloud was very foundational, provide basic VMs, to then growing with ML, and with, as generative AI came around, large language models, of course, then we are where we are now. However, then additional challenge, our models are tiring, so organizations have to understand the entire life cycle of this process also. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Anu?
I mean, you're an expert in this. Like, you've actually seen the Azure growth. Like, so, like for me, like seeing from outside, like I was mostly in the big data space, working over there, and like the Hadoop traditional platforms, right? And like cloud has enabled like you to scale easily. This wasn't possible. Like, and also like quickly spin up in instances and like build your applications, which wasn't possible before. Quick time to value, and also since it's also more cost effective than using like on-premise. So the journey from on-premise to cloud, like I think, has been incredible, and like and that's the reason like we are able to even like see the advancements in generative AI now, like because people are able to train these models on like servers, cloud servers, and derive value out of it.
Makes sense. So one of the things I was curious about is when it comes to IDP and document processing, right? If you look at all your spectrum of use cases, what percentage of them would eventually need a human in the loop to check things off before everything is baked into the system? And what percentage no humans are needed, you can trust the thing? Where do you think that line is drawn roughly?
Yeah. So, I mean, currently I'm seeing like, I mean, you need to have a human in the loop, like always, if you're using AI solutions. That is very important. When you start building your solutions, you need to have like an evaluation strategy that helps you assess the accuracy of these models, how they are behaving, right? Like how it's analyzing information, how well it's analyzing the information from your unstructured data. So you need to have some evaluation strategies around that. But going back to your question, like human in the loop is always important, especially when you're dealing with generative AI solutions. Like maybe in the future things will change, but I think like it's critical at this point to have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. I mean, you cannot, at this point, it's still very early on. Generative AI is still very early, and there's a lot of organizations, Fortune 500 companies, that are still iterating and testing the IDP. And at this point, it's close to 100% where you have to have a human in the loop. Some forms may have some information on there that shouldn't be on there, for example, beyond PII, maybe, some derogatory information as well, or bias information. Then you definitely want both Gen AI to recognize and identify that, and then have the human confirm as well.
But you need to, like have like just like Paul said, really, you need to have that safety layer on top of it, like understanding biases, like looking for like any privacy issues, compliance issues, and things like that. And human. I mean, that's the reason. Yeah, you need to have that additional layer of safety with human.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Paul, were you going to say something?
I was just going to add that with generative AI, of course, it does make a lot of the processing a lot faster, and identify the safety there quickly. But but again, they always have a human to confirm anyway. So it's not an onerous task to do so. But it just, I mean, already there's humans in the loop. There may be a large group of people, but now you could reduce, potentially the amount of time that would take because you have generative AI and IDP integrated into the process. So
no, I agree. Despite the need for the human in the loop, it's just fundamentally a magical technology. Whenever I do demos to fairly not very technical organizations, they look at me almost as if I'm some kind of a magician. The kind of stuff it can do, right? Especially when it comes to documents and all of that. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Just one note there.
Yes.
Sorry.
So
I mean, like we are seeing a lot of like agentic AI also now, which is like advancing, right? Like the AI solutions. Like, I mean, the human intervention, the time, like the number of times the humans have to intervene may go down eventually as these AI agents get more intelligent, like with like reasoning models and stuff.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. And when we go one layer down below the use cases, what are some of the technological toolkit within AI that empowers or enables IDP?
For any generative AI or AI workloads, we call it, there has to be some sort of framework. So AI models, LLM models themselves will not run. I mean, you do have the playground where you can test things. However, in order for you to integrate into an existing system, there has to be an application integration there as well. So some of the tools that are provided to enable both an application as well as generative AI models together is things such as LangChain. Some people might have heard it's a framework which allows programming framework which allows you to integrate applications and Gen AI together. Semantic kernel is another big framework as well. So you have to have that methodology and framework in place to really take advantage and unlock your generative AI services and solution.
So at the application layer, like Paul, you had the right thing. So there, so for like at more deeper level, if we go like there are two types of use cases, as I said earlier, right? Like one is like extracting information from documents, which is like quick, easy extraction. So Azure Document Intelligence can really help you there. That is what we see with our customers a lot. Like, and then the second type of use case is where you're trying to take it one step further with RAG and generative AI, right? That's where we are seeing like Azure AI Search doing like the embeddings of these text in this unstructured data, and then chat. Like we have something called as a chat on your data feature on Azure, which helps you build those Q&A type of experiences on top of this on this unstructured data. So organize, basically, like example being the organizational chatbot is one where you can build like search experiences grounded on your organizational data. So that's a big one. And then apart from that, yes, like thinking about security, scalability, and safety of this, like when you're architecting the solution is also very important. From security standpoint, having like the role-based access control, like having the right authentication, authorization, the network security, and then from the safety standpoint, like we have something called as Azure Content Safety that can help you build like a safe layer adhering to the responsible AI principles as well. And so, and from scalability aspect, like these all APIs, you could use something like the API Azure API Manager, which can help you scale this globally as well. So all these things, like thinking about like from all the well-architected framework of Azure, it helps you build a good, strong, holistic solution.
And given that document processing is a low-hanging universal use case, and kind of Azure and OpenAI have built this easy-to-use modular components to make their job easy. What separates a good IDP implementation from a not good IDP implementation? Or I'm just trying to understand, is this like email where anybody who accesses email, their quality of experience with email is the same? As against building a website, there's a spectrum of quality of a website one can build with what's available. What differentiates a good IDP deployment versus a not very good one?
Yeah, that's a great question, Binny. To first part of your question, yeah, not all IDPs are the same. The experiences can fluctuate.
Mhm.
And what distinguishes a good one is really the end results. We talked about having a human in the loop and confirming the IDP solution and processes are meeting the requirements of the business. I mean, sounds pretty straightforward, and it should. However, that may not always be the case. For example, there may be, maybe a part of the process is the document doesn't unmentioned classification doesn't classify the document correctly. Maybe there's private information there. We should have been tagged and labeled as such, but it was not. And then subsequently, that process allowed the document to be accessed, role-based access for others. Now it's a situation where that's not a good implementation. Other people have access to maybe PII or secure information, which they should not have. And so that's an example of maybe not a good implementation of IDP. A good implementation of IDP would, of course, ensure that any documents that may be sensitive or contain PII are labeled, classified correctly, and are routed to just the individuals or applications that need it. So that's one. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Anu,
Yeah.
you want to add anything else?
So having a customers who have like an evaluation strategy early on, I see succeed on such projects, right? For your use case, what metrics really matter? And like, firstly, trying to understand what your business problem is and what you're trying to achieve, right? And then based on that, like having some evaluation strategy start early on, because that helps you understand like with every iteration, how you're improving, right? So like some of these key principles when you're applying early on, like, yeah, I see projects being successful. And also like, so for some reason, we always recommend starting with Azure Document Intelligence. And then if that doesn't work, then augmenting it with GPT-4o, right? That way, like you're actually building a really cost-effective solution with high accuracy. So, and these are like some of the things, like some best practices you could follow to make your project successful.
Noted. Okay. Giving since we're talking about success and failure with IDP, how often does just the base plain vanilla foundation model work? And in what scenarios do you need to actually fine tune that to a specific industry or a vertical or a use case? How do you make that call? That would be great to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's all again depends on like how you're evaluating it, like starting. So these models are actually getting so advanced, like they're like if they have a shortcoming today, they may not have a shortcoming tomorrow, right? Because like OpenAI, they're training these models continuously, improving them. Now, yeah, like having like an evaluation strategy early on, and then assessing it based on that really helps you achieve that.
Yeah. And quite often we do see, you may have to use specific LLM models for specific domain or industries as well. For example, IDP for healthcare is a lot different than IDP for real estate, for example, right? Just terminology, nomenclature, just everything that goes in the entire process, and so that's where sometimes you may need to use, not fine-tune the model, but use specific types of models that are more focused for the industry. For example, there are models out there that are all they have is finance data and focus on financial information. So those would be great for tax and audit companies or even banks, for example. But they wouldn't work well for real estate, healthcare. So we don't see much, at least I don't see much of the fine tuning of these models, because now there's large number volume of models already available that have already been fine-tuned already.
Right.
So especially industry specific. So, rather than reinventing the wheel, you can use existing models that are already available. Yeah.
Yeah. Customers are, I mean, they are looking into fine tuning now, like since the costs have also gone down,
Yeah.
and like they're trying to understand if that could again like increase the accuracy, like given if they have like some kind of proprietary data which is their secret sauce, and they could use that data to fine tune the model and get more out of it, right? So we have started seeing that, and also like this is, I mean, I've been listening to some AI industry leaders, and like this is going to be very like great opportunity for entrepreneurs to build more vertical large language model, vertical like which is very industry focused, since fine tuning is also getting cheaper. But yeah, we are just at the beginning of it. I feel like we haven't really seen like large scale like production deployments at the moment, but we're at least me. But yeah, I think in the future there's a lot of opportunity for that, especially for entrepreneurs who are looking to build industry specific models.
Makes sense. But as an entrepreneur, I must say, every time we try to think of a new AI feature, we're always thinking, okay, well, what if Microsoft build this off right now? So,
What does Microsoft? Why doesn't
what?
Microsoft build?
No, I said Microsoft is going to build this. Then what are we going to do?
Sure, right. Well, I mean that's a great point, Binny. Is like,
Yeah.
for example, rather than having our customers or any customers build their own solutions, Microsoft said, well, forms is basic requirement for any business, and let's build an entire service around it. And that's why there was originally it was called Form Recognizer, but now we call it Azure AI Document Intelligence. It's a big word, but that's exactly what it is. It'll do all of the heavy lifting for an organization or company, so they don't have to create their own models or fine tune it. Microsoft does that on the back end using the Azure AI document intelligence services. Yeah. So, but you're right. I mean, if there's a pattern there where large number of customers have that same business requirement, then typically there's a need for it, and so organization companies like Microsoft will go and address that. So
yeah,
great point.
So you spoke about kind of specialized vertical models focusing on specific domain knowledge. What other advancements in AI do you foresee fundamentally moving IDP forward towards lesser and lesser human in the loop?
Yeah. But it's not only specific to IDP, but just I think in any generative AI service is so Anu mentioned autonomous agents, or AutoGen, and we'll describe what that is in a minute. But what I also see is the prompt engineering aspect of it, just where what that is, you're asking questions against your IDP data already. Okay, that's the analytic part. Just not getting the results. That's a very iterative process as well. So what you have to do is modify the prompt a little bit, ask the right questions for Gen AI to then respond back and give you the right answer. That part of it is now being more automated as well. So what that means is now you have models that can generate prompts for you. So that can think about that as, okay, you have this set of data, you want to ask the right questions, the prompts. Now, rather than having to go through iterative process, which takes time, you reduce that by using Gen AI to generate the prompt for you, which you can then use against your data. So, but that goes along lines of automatic AutoGen as well. But I'll let Anu speak for now. Go, Anu. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so for me, I'm quite bullish on the AI agents part. Like, I just want to like double click on that, like why it's so critical right now. Like, so basically AI agents, these are AI systems that can act with little to no human intervention, right? This combined with the reasoning models, like OpenAI recently announced the O1 models, like these are the inference scaling models. I mean, it's going to be so powerful. So for example, like you will have like a tax preparer agent. Imagine having a tax preparer agent. You ask it to go and like process all the customer documents like W-2s, 1099s, and then come back and give the best return. Okay. So
Mm.
it will go for like 15, 20 minutes. It will just process these documents, look over like 10, 15 documents and come back and give you the information, right? So there, I think there's a lot of promise there, and like a lot of productivity boost. Um, and that is one. And then the multimodal small language models, I think, will be also promising. They'll make it very cost effective to
Mhm.
process unstructured data and unlock a lot of value out of it in a cost effective, and that will help like with the ROI aspect of Gen AI as well, I think. And these models are just getting cheaper, like the open source models as well. So that is the second one. And like as I said earlier, like this market is expected to grow at 30% year over year. And like by 2032, it's going to be close to like $20 billion market size. Uh, so that, yeah, it's a lot of potential in these areas.
Makes sense. So you're basically saying, the advancements, largely agentic AI, small language models, and multimodal capabilities are kind of what will push it forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, makes sense. And when you speak with your customers, right, when it comes to AI strategy and implementing AI, what are their top burning problems that they articulate, the biggest challenges that they face?
Yeah.
Yeah, either in picking a project or even moving something from POC to deployment, the biggest challenges.
Yeah. I mean, from like people process standpoint, I see a lot of challenges, like the majority of the challenges, like around p- like the upskilling aspect of it, like and like organizations, they get into this analysis paralysis phase, like
Mm,
where they're trying to understand how they can like like tackle the high value use cases and where can they get the ROI, right? So that really and that is one. And then like access to systems, like I see like the engineers, they don't really get access to these AI like large language models easily,
mm,
and that hinders their upskilling aspect as well.
mhm.
And yeah, so from people process standpoint, like these are like some of the challenges I see. And yeah, like from the technology standpoint, like data quality issues, like data that's like if you have these unstructured documents, they may have like handwritten content, like or maybe if you're working with global clients, like multilingual data. So, so this was last year actually. The like these IDP solutions weren't as intelligent to process this, but things are getting better, improving day by day, right? Like so now it's actually much better than last year. So challenges from that standpoint, I see, yeah, technology standpoint, like data quality, data silos. Um, yeah, these are some of them I
Mhm.
see on the field.
Yep. Yep. I
Paul,
agree
anything,
with
have
no.
you? It's
Yeah,
mostly.
Anu hit the top five,
Okay.
the top three at least, anyways, where I think people processes their upskilling that you mentioned. There's sometime you mentioned data silo as well. That's a
Mhm.
huge one. I also see, I mean, budget's always a concern as well. Like, okay, do you take elephant in the room is do you existing people, do you modify their skill sets, or
Yeah.
I know what's our budget like. That's sometimes a challenge. But the large organizations, not as much. It's just more of modifying their existing budgets on
Mhm.
where maybe some more towards the technology Gen AI aspect of it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it just
And
requires planning.
planning. Okay. And, staying on the people and skilling topic, right? Uh, Earlier, if a company wanted an AI or a data science solution, they would go to the data science team to do it. Is that the same with Gen AI solutions, or are they expecting regular full stack developers and cloud dev and everybody to have a Gen AI skill set and they implement the Gen AI solutions? How are companies doing this?
Yeah. I think it's a mixed bag. Honestly, what that means is uh, they expect everybody to understand Gen AI or
Mm,
use it some aspect. I mean, we already do, like for example, Microsoft, there's Gen AI integrated into every application and service. For example,
yeah.
Copilot, we have
Mm,
Copilots, right, for everything. But that's your end or business user. They're not the data science or experts.
Mhm.
So it's a team. I think it does still require data science to some degree, not as
Yeah.
much because Gen AI does allow your everyday developer to be able to, use simple low code in integrating their applications
Yeah.
and Gen
Yeah.
AI together. So you
Right.
don't have to be a hardcore data scientist anymore necessarily to, uh, for example, you may not know what type of algorithm to use against a particular solution. There's a LLM model out there that can auto ML automatically select which
Mhm.
model you want to use. You may need to use against your data set. So I think it's a little bit of everything where everybody is expected to know Gen AI to some degree, yet reliance on pure data scientists in the past, that's no longer true. A developer and a small team can create entire generative AI applications and services.
Yeah.
I think in our book we also mentioned the fact that the next billion-dollar companies will be created by a small set of individuals, a group that will, you know, that will develop automatic agents and Gen AI agents that will run the entire business for them. And
Mhm.
that kind of tells you, okay, the skill set is a smaller, a lower barrier, if you would, and basically most anybody now will be able to create and use these large scale Gen AI applications.
I have similar views as Paul on this as well. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I work with like lean team of developers. I mean, Gen AI fundamentals, like everyone needs to know that.
Mhm.
Like that is given, like that is, I mean, you need to start understand the basics. And like now, I mean, a data scientist role, like you don't really need to be a hardcore data scientist. Like you just need to know how to use these models to be more effective at your work, right? Like
Yeah.
so that is what is needed. And like I mean, like the code, the software engineering is like transforming now, like with AI, like you can just get the whole code automatically. So it's just like it's good to know everything. And like
Yeah.
yeah, we at Microsoft, we call this learn it all culture. Yeah, I mean, and
So
that really is that's
yeah.
the growth mindset that we have. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess, both your own contribution to filling this skilling uh, need is the book that both of you authored, Gen AI for Cloud Solutions. So what was the original inspiration to write the book?
Sure. I could mention that.
Mhm.
So this back January 2023, Microsoft, we announced a partnership with OpenAI as well.
Mhm.
Many people knew about generative AI maybe to some degree, but it wasn't common where, within a month in 2023, I remember I was talking to even my mother and she heard this term chat GPT. She wanted to know more about chat GPT. And I'm like, oh, my mother was not even technical at all.
Mhm.
Um, so even the, everyday person basically who's not even into technology had heard about chat GPT and subsequently was starting to use it. However, really people really didn't understand the ramifications of it. At the same time, large organizations that we work with, Anurag and myself, they were also saying, "Hey, we may have some possible use cases for ChatGPT, and trying to address their needs."
Mhm.
Then a publishing company had reached out to me because we had written some blogs in the past
Mhm.
of talking about generative AI and ChatGPT specifically. And they wanted us to write a book about ChatGPT specifically. But during the discussions that morphed into we could make this larger, not only ChatGPT, which is a one specific model based off of GPT 4.0. Let's
Yeah.
just include all LLMs and let's just conclude whatever cloud solutions, some of the challenges customers may have. And so we expanded it to, Gen AI for cloud solutions.
Yeah.
It
And
is
and I got
probably,
lucky. Yeah.
yeah, got on it?
No, I'm saying I got lucky that Paul, you reached out to me to co-author with you. Like so, the
Thank you.
opportunity landed on my lap.
Yeah, great partnership. Um, I do want to say that it was a bit of a challenge because early on, generative AI, and still today, it's changing at such a fast pace. For
Right.
example, we would write a paragraph or a sentence
Exactly.
or a chapter, And I mean, it's not writing like a science fiction book where, you could write about it.
Yeah.
I mean, things were changing and we would have to rewrite paragraphs. A week later, we're like, wait, this already changed. And so, but to make it relevant, make the book relevant, we decided that we're going to take a different approach to kind of lay the foundation of what generative AI means to individuals, organizations, and then build on that knowledge.
Okay.
And that can last the test of time, or
And-
still true, I think.
Yeah. And when you wrote the book, right? Who was the audience you had in mind? Who do you recommend pick up that book? And what did you kind of anticipate they would get at the end of that book? What do you expect them to go back to their offices and do after they read the book?
Great question. So I think it was your typical data engineers, data scientists, and application developers, and people that were application developers. So there's not really code in the book, or we don't really go focus on that side of it, but more of if you want an entire holistic understanding of Gen AI, how other aspects of Gen AI work with an application. So what we expected is for individuals to take the book back, have a broad as well as focused understanding of what Gen AI is, and then also we identified some use cases that potentially a company can look at too. So that's what they could take back. Anu, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, like in the last 2 years, we've seen so many innovative use cases go to production, right? Like this, we just wanted to incorporate all our experiences from the field in this book. And like we had this case studies and stuff, and like how you could build a well-architected Gen AI solution end to end, and like some of the lessons learned from the field, and how you could incorporate that from the first principle standpoint, how you could build a strong, scalable, secure solution. So that was our goal in this book.
Got it. Makes sense. For companies starting out on the document processing IDP journey, what are some best practices they ought to keep in mind to get successful outcomes?
So yeah, I mean, some of the things, like the first thing I would say is try to understand your business problem. What's the outcome you're trying to achieve, right? So that is the main thing. And then start with something small, like, so we have a lot of solution accelerators around IDP as well on Azure. Get started with something simple that's already there, out of the box solution, document intelligence, play on the playground, and like try to understand how it's performing, right? Start simple. Build a prototype with like 3 or 4 clear requirements that you have, right? Like start small, start simple, and then have an evaluation strategy to assess how the accuracy is, right? First, always optimize for accuracy, and then like think about cost. Like that's what I tell my customers, because I've seen a lot of success because of that as well. So optimize for accuracy with this evaluation strategy with every iteration.
Yeah.
And then you could build more complex solutions on top of it, and like scale it with maybe GPT-4 models, and and security is not optional, it's mandatory. Like at every step, understand how you could secure your data and indexes in this application.
Got it. Makes sense. On that note, Paul and Anurag, thank you so much for taking time to do this. This has been extremely helpful. Yeah. I really appreciate you taking time for it. Very, very helpful to me and the audience.
Thanks for having us, Binny, and appreciate Project Pro and the efforts you guys make. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Binny. It was really nice being on this show and giving our insights. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.